All right, so now let's talk about skills to sell over the phone. So I'm going to give you 5 skills that are going to help you when you're communicating with all of these people over the phone. Number 1, I'm going to teach you how to remove reflex resistance. Number 2, I'm going to teach you about being a chameleon. Number 3, speaking in hypotheticals. Number 4, responding to objections. And then number 5, which is the most important thing, how to set appointments. So let's talk about skill number 1, removing reflex resistance. Okay, here's what I mean. There's 2 concepts that you need to learn that are backed by science. 1, something called psychological reactance, and 2, the principle of consistency. And here's how they work. Okay, psychological reactance is when a person feels that their ability to make their own choice is at risk, or they feel pressured to do something. When that happens, the person instinctively pushes back. You do it and I do it. And reactance is at the core of why every single sale is lost. So let me give you an example that we have all experienced probably on a weekly basis. You walk into a department store, okay, because you're just so bored and you just want to go find something to do. And the sales clerk says, "Can I help you find something?" And what do you guys say every time without fail? "Nope, I'm just looking." Every single time. We'd all agree with that. However, here's what's interesting that happens in about 3, 4, 5 minutes later. You show up at the desk and then you actually purchase something. Well, how is that possible? When the person says, "Can I help you find something?" "No, I'm just looking. I'm just very bored. I'm just looking." No, that wasn't the case. It was your reflex saying, "Nope, I'm just looking." Because as soon as you felt that reactance, that's what we're talking about, you automatically wanted to push back. This is why when you tell a child, "Don't touch that hot stove, you're going to burn your damn hand. Don't touch the stove." What do they do every time? They touch the stove. That's reactance. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to lower that reactance, because let's face it, if you call a prospect out of the blue, do they have a lot of reactance towards you? Yes or yes? Absolutely. So we have to look at the science and say, how do we lower, or better yet, how do we remove the prospect's reactance? I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. All right, so there's a study done by 2 behavioral scientists, and they wanted to find out, how in the world do we lower this reactance? Okay, the study was called the Panhandler study. You guys can go look you guys can go do research on it, but let me share with you what happened. So the scientists took 2 groups of panhandlers, and they were going to go into a busy street and ask for money. One group of panhandlers just had a simple sign that just said, "Help." The other group of people also had the same message, but after they delivered that message, they used something that removed all of the reactance. And here's what they said. They said, "Of course, it's up to you." And what they found was the group that added that line got 400% more money. Why? Because we had to have the prospect or the person giving money make their own decision, that we weren't trying to force them to do anything, that it was up to them whether or not they wanted to donate or give money. And when we can do that, the likelihood of somebody's compliance goes up. In this study that the psychologist found was by 400%. So what we need to do is do the same thing when we're prospecting and generating new business, or we're meeting with buyers and sellers. We have to lower their reactance. They can't feel as though you're pressuring them. They have to feel as though things are their own idea. And again, I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay. Now let's talk about the second concept on how to remove reflex resistance. This is called the scientific principle of consistency. And what it says is, when a person makes a public commitment, the desire to be consistent with that commitment becomes immeasurable. I mean, it's so high that scientists can't even measure how high it is. And so they did a study. They did a study on a group of people that lived in this apartment complex. And they had they separated them into 2 groups. And the idea here was that local community wanted to build a recreation center. And half the group, they sent them a petition to sign to say, are you in support of this new construction? They sent those out. Those people signed it, said, yeah, we're in support of that. We would love a recreation center. Okay, cool. And then the other people, they didn't send that petition. And here's what they found. When they went to ask for donations, okay, so the first group of people, they signed a petition. Yes, I absolutely publicly declare I'm in support of this. They didn't ask for any money yet. But when they went to go ask for money, 92% of the people that publicly declared that they are in favor of this gave money, where the people that didn't publicly sign the petition didn't give money. What does this suggest? What does this mean? This means that when people voice a commitment publicly, like, yes, I can help you move your couch this weekend, Yaz, the chances of me helping her to move her couch this weekend is immeasurably higher than had I not committed publicly. So what does this mean? So let me show you guys what I call the science-backed sales call opener that lowers reactance, and we take that principle of consistency. Okay, so if there was a magic script, here's what it would be. So we call a prospect, we call a for sale by owner, and the prospect's name is Bob. Bob is always my favorite. It's like Bob and Sue for everything. So we always use their first name because to you, your first name is the most beautiful word in the English language. Think back to school, right? You weren't paying attention and you're like, yes. And you're like, oh shit. Yes. Yeah. Right. It catch you off guard, right? So this is used as a pattern interrupt in neurolinguistics. So we use the prospect's first name. So a man answers the phone. We're calling Bob. He says, hello. You say, Bob? He goes, yeah. Who's this? You say, this is Brandon. I'm a realtor and I know this call's out of the blue, but I was hoping to tell you why I called. And then you could tell me if we should talk or not. Fair enough. Now we've given the prospect full autonomy to make their own decision whether or not we need to have this conversation. This is how we lower the prospect's reactance versus just pressuring them into a conversation that they may or may not want to have. So think about this the next time you call a lead, right? Do you just try to force your way into the conversation? Well, when we use science and we leave it up to the prospect, and then they say, yeah, well, what's up? Which they will. That takes the principle of consistency. When they verbalize their commitment to have the conversation with you, your conversations go so much smoother. The amount of objections and pushback that you get goes down dramatically. So let's talk about skill number 2. If you have any questions about skill number 1, let me know. Skill number 2, I'm going to go a lot faster now because I don't want to run out of time. This is called being a chameleon. Okay. So there's 4 personality styles. Everybody has a little bit of all of them, but we all have a dominant trait. So we have to listen for who we are communicating with, and then we must alter how we communicate with them. It's not up to them. All the science and all the studies suggest that we have a massive responsibility on how people respond to us. All right. So think about that. The next time you want to call somebody an asshole, think about what was my responsibility in that interaction, because all the science suggests that you play a huge role on how people respond to you. So there's the driver, there's the amiable, the expressive, and the analytical. So you have to listen to say, okay, who am I actually talking to? There's great books on selling to all 4 personality styles. You guys should all go get them. But if you're communicating with the driver, they don't care about your feelings, right? You got to get right to the point and they will cut you off. So you got to be direct and right to the point. Amiables are the people pleasers, right? They're never mad. They just go with the flow. So you need to show them how much you care. The expressives, they just love the talk. They want all the recognition. They want all the praise. They're the life of the party. So when you're communicating with expressives, right, you want to edify their ego as much as you possibly can. And then when communicating with the analyticals, of course, the toughest one for us, these are like the engineer types, right? These are the data-driven people. So focus on the data. And analyticals hate pressure. They take a long time to make decisions, which okay. Just take that into consideration when you're communicating with them. Let's talk about skill number 3, speaking in hypotheticals, okay? Here's the story I always tell to all of my coaching clients, all right? So On screen, you see a picture of a couple that just got married. But what does the caption say? The caption says, "Are you guys getting a divorce?" Isn't that weird? Let me explain to you what's happening here. Here's what so many real estate agents do. Okay. And I'm going to give you a great example in just a minute. It would be ridiculous. And I think hopefully you guys would all agree. It would be absolutely ridiculous to go up to a couple on their wedding day and ask them if they're planning to get divorced on the same day. You guys all agree? Hopefully you smile. That's supposed to be a joke. You can laugh. It would be like absurd, right? We do that every day in real estate, which I'll show you in just a second. However, what if you went up to that couple that just got married and said, "Hey, let me ask you a question. I know you guys just got married. I respect that. It's a great wedding. It's amazing, super fun time. What if in 5 years, this person becomes somebody completely different? They go off the rails. You find out you married a real asshole. At that point, if that were to ever occur, would you be open to maybe getting a divorce and dating again?" Well, now when you can speak in hypotheticals, this is yet again another strategy that scientists have shown to lower reactance. In other words, don't put people on the spot. When you can propose different ideas about something in the future that most likely the perception that it will never happen, that is the very moment somebody will open up. And so this is what we need to do in real estate. So let me give you an example. Okay, calling a for sale by owner. We all know they're selling by owner. The sign's in the front yard. It might as well just say, "I don't want to list my house with the realtor." Yet, every realtor tries to call a for sale by owner and convince them to list with the realtor. It's the same thing like going up to the person that just got married and asking them to get a divorce on the same day. Of course, they're going to give you objections. Of course, they're going to tell you to kick rocks. Of course, they're going to hang up the phone on you because you weren't taking the science. You were doing things that go against how humans behave. So here's what you need to do instead using this skill. Here's what you want to do. You call it for sale by owner and you say, "Mr. For sale by owner, listen, I understand that you're selling on your own," which makes sense regardless of what other agents are telling you. "I was only calling to find out if for some reason you can't get the home sold on your own within the next 3 to 4 weeks, if you'd be open to looking at some other options down the road potentially." Now, what are we doing here? We already know the for sale by owner, the likelihood of them listing with an agent the first day they try to sell their house on their own, is it high or low? It's very, 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 very low because their optimism right now is super high. I'm selling this on my own. I don't need a realtor. I don't want a realtor. I don't value realtors. But what happens over time is when they don't sell on their own and they get frustrated with all the lowball offers and all the investors calling them and all the realtor boneheads calling them, they start to lose the optimism. Conversion with all for sale by owners lives between weeks 4 and 6. Well, we know that, right? Well, why would we try to put them on the spot? We shouldn't. Speak in hypotheticals. Then when the for sale by owner says, "Yeah, well, as I guess, yeah, if we can't sell this thing in a month or 2 months from now, yes, sure, we'd be open to other opportunities." Boom. That is what you're looking for. That's step 1 in converting a lead into a listing. You're trying to find the people who are open to other ideas down the road if they can't do what they want to do on their own. That's a for sale by owner example on how you would use this skill to speak in hypotheticals. Let's talk about skill number 4, responding to objections. I could talk about this for 7.5 days, but we're going to do it in like less than 70 seconds. So here's my 3-step framework. 1, anytime you get an objection, someone says, "I don't like your pink shirt, Brandon." Cool. I totally get it, right? That's how you respond to any objection. Whether your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife gives you any objection or any prospect, it must be agreeable. The second it's not, what happens? That becomes an argument, right? So if you don't want to argue with your clients, the first thing out of your mouth is like, "I get it. Totally makes sense. I'm with you." This is called an agreeable acknowledgement. This is how we lower their defenses. Step number 2 is what I call strategic empathy. Okay. So how can you speak from the prospect's point of view, not yours? Not what's best for you, what is best for the client? So Yaz tells me, "Brandon, your pink shirt is hideous." I say, "I get it. I understand. If I was you having to look at this pink shirt for this whole Zoom, I'd probably be frustrated too, right? That would be strategic empathy. And then number 3 is pivoting to another question immediately, without pause, without hesitation. This is how you control sales conversations, is by asking questions, okay? The one listening is in control. The one talking is out of control. Because think about this. When I ask you a question and get you to talk, who controlled that interaction? It was me that pulled on the string, right? So we have to pivot to another question immediately. Let me give you an example. You call an expired listing, and the prospect gives you this objection. Hey, thanks for calling, but you know what? We're no longer selling the home, which is an objection you get a lot from expired listings. This is how you use that framework. You would say, hey, listen, makes sense. And if I was you, I'd probably want to break as well. So let me ask you, had you got a great offer, where were you planning to move? We have to pivot the next question away from the objection. All right. So we use this framework. Makes total sense. And again, if I was you, I'd probably want to break from the market too. So I guess let me just ask you before I let you go, had you gotten a great offer when you were on the market, where were you planning on moving? Well, we were planning on downsizing. We're trying to get rid of this house. And now we can have a conversation. Now we can prolong the conversation instead of getting stuck and saying, oh shit, what do I do next? And then the phone call ends. Okay. Let's talk about skill number 5, setting appointments. All right. So you have to focus on getting face-to-face. People don't owe you anything over the phone. They're not going to tell you anything over the phone. You have to focus on getting the face-to-face meeting. What you and every other realtor has ever told me is, Brandon, when I'm in front of somebody, I do great. It's when I'm on the phone that I get all weird and my neck gets all blotchy and I get sweaty and I get all uncomfortable. But when I'm in person, I'm fine. Okay. So you want to focus on getting face-to-face. Don't take the bait. I list properties every single day, and so does my team, with for sale by owners who tell us, I hate realtors. I would rather die than pay a realtor commission. We get those listings every single day, okay? Because we don't take the bait, and nothing is as it seems. So remember, we talked about reflex resistance. When you walk in the department store and you say, they say, Yaz, can I help you find something? And Yaz says, no, I'm just looking. But then she buys something 90 seconds later. Nothing is as it seems. So don't take the bait and start trying to get into this conversation about the objection. Just stay agreeable, get past it. Because what happens in most cases is what you'll find is that there is motivation there that they didn't let on in the beginning. So there's a 4-step framework for setting appointments, okay? 1, you want to lower reactance. 2 is a value statement, which is selling the appointment. Number 3 is giving the perception of control to the prospect. And then number 4 is using the F word to gain commitment. And not that F word, Yaz. I'm talking about using fair. So let me give you the script. Here's an example. Bob, listen, you're a smart guy. You're probably not going to do anything unless it made sense. Am I right? Well, yeah, Brandon, you're probably right. Okay, great. Well, listen, if you want, I'd be happy to stop by one day this week. And when I'm there, I'll share a strategy on how I can get buyers to overpay for your home. And then you can decide if working with me makes sense or not. Fair enough? Right? That is how you get someone to say, yeah, I mean, there's really no downside. So this script takes into consideration all 4 steps in that framework. You can go back and you can rewatch this and practice this. But again, this is how we can really increase our contact to appointment set ratio, is by being able to deliver this science-based script to get people to agree to the meeting.